Hi, this is Mike from BandLab. Many R&B, trap, and hip-hop tracks take inspiration from Latin music. In this video, we'll show you how to create a Latin guitar melody using BandLab's included guitar instruments. You can open this project yourself with the link in the video description. And if you find this guide useful, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to be the first to know when new videos drop. Let's start by finding a trap drum beat that will provide us with a rhythmic backing to work with. I opened BandLab's Sounds and typed trap into the text search field. I opened the Turbo Trap Pack and set the instrument filter to drum. I then dragged Turbo Trap Drum 07 into the project. As this is the first sample loop we're adding, BandLab will automatically set the project tempo to that of the loop, 140 beats per minute. I set the track's volume to -3 dB, so that we have headroom to add other elements to the mix. Next, I'm going to make a chord progression that we can base our melody around. I add a new virtual instrument track and leave it on the default grand piano instrument. I also set this track to -3 dB. I compose a chord progression that plays G minor, F major, E flat major, and D major in the first inversion. This chord progression sounds cool, but I'd like to give it a touch more Latin flavor. I changed the instrument to guitars, nylon guitar. I then turned settings, snap to grid off, then moved the second and third note of each chord back a touch for a strummed feel. This feels more inspirational for creating a Latin vibe. I reactivate snap to grid. You can do this by clicking the magnet icon. Then shorten the notes of the last chord so that they finish at the start of the third bar. I then duplicate the progression out. To duplicate notes or clips in BandLab, hold Option on Mac or Alt on Windows and drag them over. I want to add one more element to help give us a vibe before we start working on the melody, and that's a bass line. I add a new virtual instrument track and set it to 808's 808 bass. I set this track to -3 dB. I sequence this to follow the root of the chord progression. For the final chord in the first inversion, I use the lowest note, which is the third, and this leads nicely back into the root note of the first chord. I duplicate the bass line out so that it plays for the whole 4-bar sequence. Now it's time to make our melody. I add a new virtual instrument track. I don't want to use the same instrument as the chords, so this time I select guitars, acoustic guitar. I set this track to -3 dB. I'm going to get a Latin feel by switching rhythmically between the root note of the chord and the fifth. I play the root note on the first beat, the fifth on the second beat, the root again on the third beat, and the fifth between the third and fourth beats. Halfway between beat 4 and the first beat of the second bar, the chord changes from G minor to F major. I add a G on the fourth beat, which is the root note of the G major chord that's playing at the time. Then I add a C halfway through the fourth beat where the chord changes. This is the fifth of the F major chord. I'm going to repeat this idea of hitting the root just as the chord ends, then going up to the fifth of the next chord. On the second beat of the second bar, I add an F, which is the root of the F major chord that's playing at the time. Halfway between the second and third beats of the second bar, the chord changes to E flat major. So I add the fifth of the E flat major here, which is B flat. Between the 3rd and 4th beats of the 2nd bar, I add the E-flat major's root note, E-flat. The final chord, the D major in the 1st inversion, plays on the 4th beat of the 2nd bar. Because the chord is in the 1st inversion, the root note is actually the highest note in the chord, so I'm going to hit that rather than the actual 5th. Let's duplicate this pattern over the next 2 bars. This time at the end, however, I add a D an octave down, which gives us a touch of funky flavor. There you have it, a guitar melody made exclusively of root notes and fifths. Remember, you can fork this project and make your own version of it using the link in the video description. Have fun!